I told her, if you get on that plane to Monaco with him, the clocks stop here. For good.
She didn't even look up from snapping her vintage Louis Vuitton suitcase shut. She just gave that breathy, dismissive little laugh, the one she used when a waiter brought the wrong vintage of wine, or when I told her I preferred to stay in on a Friday night.
Oh, please, Elias. Stop being so dramatic, she sighed, adjusting her silk scarf in the hallway mirror. It's an exclusive art symposium. Julian is a highly respected collector, and he's finally giving me the introduction I need to elevate the gallery.
I'm suffocating in this city, Elias. I need to breathe.
Julian wasn't just a collector. He was her ex-fiancé. A smooth-talking art broker who had been circling our marriage for the last 8 months like a vulture waiting for a horse to drop.
My name is Elias Thorne. I'm 53 years old, and for the last 2 decades, I've been a master horologist, a restorer of antique timepieces and complex mechanical clocks. My work requires infinite patience, steady hands, and an absolute understanding of how thousands of tiny, unseen pieces work together to keep a system moving.
I thought I understood my wife Evelyn the same way. We had been married for 19 years. We owned a beautiful 4-story brownstone in Boston. I had my restoration workshop on the ground floor, and she ran her boutique art gallery on the second. We lived in the penthouse above.
I was the steady foundation that allowed her to live her high society dreams.
But a year ago I noticed her rhythm change. The late-night text she would hide by flipping her phone face down. The sudden influx of designer clothes that her gallery's legitimate sales couldn't possibly cover. And then, the reemergence of Julian.
I watched her pull the handle of her luggage up. "I'll be back in 10 days, Evelyn said, checking her reflection one last time. "Try to get out of the workshop while I'm gone. Get some sun."
You're turning into one of your dusty old clocks.
10 days, I repeated quietly. Are you sure this is the timeline you want to set?
She rolled her eyes. I don't have time for ultimatums, Elias. My car is waiting.
She walked out the heavy oak door without a backward glance, leaving a trail of expensive perfume in the air. She thought I was just a quiet, boring man who would sit in his workshop and wait for her to finish her adventure. She mistook my silence for submission.
What Evelyn didn't know is that men who spend their lives studying gears and springs learn a fundamental truth. When a mechanism is irreparably broken, you don't keep winding it. You dismantle it.
20 minutes after her black car disappeared down the avenue, I locked the front doors of the gallery. I walked down to my basement workshop, moved aside a 19th century grandfather clock, and opened my floor safe.
Inside was a thick manila folder labeled The Mainspring Protocol.
I had drawn it up 7 months ago, the day I found hotel receipts from Paris in her coat pocket for a weekend. She claimed she was visiting her sister in Chicago. Some men find out their wives are unfaithful and they scream. They throw things. They hire a divorce lawyer the same day in a fit of rage.
I didn't. I spent 7 months quietly putting every single legal and financial piece of my life into a fortified vault.
I made a phone call. "Marcus, it's Elias. The pendulum is swinging."
I'll have the paperwork ready on my desk in an hour, my attorney replied.
Marcus Vance's office was a sanctuary of leather and mahogany. When I arrived, he slid a stack of documents across the desk. It was a masterpiece of legal engineering.
When Evelyn and I bought the brownstone 15 years ago, we used my inheritance. She had refused to sign the mortgage, claiming she didn't want her credit tied up in real estate when she needed liquidity for her gallery. So, the building was entirely in a holding company, an LLC that I was the sole proprietor of.
The eviction notices for the gallery space, the LLC restructuring, and the residential lease agreement for the penthouse, Marcus said, tapping the documents. Everything is dated, witnessed, and ready to be filed with the city first thing tomorrow morning. Evelyn has absolutely no equity in the building, Elias. Once she's been gone for 48 hours, her residency claim is severely weakened under the terms we drafted.
And the new tenant? I asked.
Waiting in the lobby. Marcus smiled.
I had asked Marcus months ago to find me a tenant. Someone quiet, responsible, and utterly unflappable. Enter Diana Cross.
Diana was 50, a retired architectural archivist who had recently gone through a brutal, highly publicized divorce from a tech CEO. She was looking for a discreet, secure, long-term place to live and work. When she walked into Marcus's office, she possessed an aura of absolute, unshakable calm.
Mr. Thorne, Diana said, shaking my hand firmly. I reviewed the lease agreement. It's generous.
First 6 months rent-free, in exchange for immediate occupancy and serving as the primary leaseholder.
It's generous because it comes with a complication, Diana. I warned her. In about 9 days, my soon-to-be ex-wife is going to try to walk into that penthouse and pretend she still owns the world. I need someone who won't blink.
Diana gave a small, knowing smile. Elias, my ex-husband, tried to have me physically removed from our estate by private security. I made them coffee while I read them the court order that gave me the house. A screaming socialite doesn't scare me.
I handed her the heavy brass keys. Welcome home, Diana.
I spent the weekend moving Evelyn's personal belongings out of the penthouse and into a secure, climate-controlled storage unit. I paid for 6 months in advance and mailed the key to her sister's house via certified mail.
By Sunday evening, Diana had moved in. Her presence immediately changed the energy of the building. Where Evelyn had filled the space with loud, ostentatious, abstract art and constant, frantic phone calls, Diana brought in plants, soft jazz, and the smell of roasting garlic and rosemary. It was the first time in years my own house felt like a sanctuary.
On Monday morning, Marcus filed the papers. Legally, the second-floor gallery was shuttered for renovations, and the penthouse belonged to Diana. I was just the building manager residing in the ground-floor apartment.
That night, my niece sent me a text. You might want to look at Evelyn's Instagram. It's sickening.
I opened the app. Evelyn was posting a curated narrative of her eat, pray, love journey. There she was, standing on the deck of a massive super yacht in Monaco, holding a crystal flute of champagne. The caption, "Sometimes you have to cross an ocean to find the luxury your soul deserves."
I zoomed in on the photo. I have an eye for microscopic detail. It's how I make my living. I wasn't looking at my wife. I was looking at the background. In the reflection of the yacht's sliding glass doors, I could see Julian sitting at a table. But it was what was on the table that made my blood run cold. It was a set of crude, unstretched canvases, partially rolled. Even through a pixelated reflection, I recognized the distinct, oxidized hue of 17th century Venetian oils.
Julian wasn't just a high-end art dealer. He was moving stolen antiquities.
I spent the next 3 hours going through the gallery's financial ledgers, the ones I had copied before locking the doors. Evelyn had always insisted on keeping the gallery's accounts totally separate from mine, calling me too rigid to understand the art market.
But I understood numbers.
I found a series of staggered, repetitive deposits. $9,500, $18,900, 9,800 cents.
All neatly structured to avoid the $10,000 federal banking alert threshold. They were coming from offshore shell companies and being funneled through her gallery as anonymous private sales, then transferred directly into a joint account she held with Julian.
She wasn't just cheating on me. She was using my building to launder money for an international art smuggling ring.
My hands didn't shake. I just felt a cold, deep clarity. I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus.
Marcus, we need to escalate. It's not just a divorce anymore. I need the number for the white-collar division of the FBI.
10 days later, 4:15 p.m. on a Thursday.
I was at my workbench, a jeweler's loupe over my eye, carefully reassembling the escapement of a French carriage clock. I heard the heavy, rhythmic thud of a taxi door closing outside.
I checked the security cameras on my monitor. Evelyn was standing on the sidewalk, looking deeply tanned, draped in a new linen pantsuit, wrestling two massive suitcases up the front steps.
She punched her code into the brass keypad at the main door.
Red light. Access denied.
She frowned, sighed heavily, and punched it in again, harder this time.
Red light.
She dug into her designer purse, pulled out her physical key, and shoved it into the lock. It wouldn't turn. I had replaced every tumbler in the building 5 days ago.
I watched the irritation on her face morph into anger. She pulled out her phone and called me. My phone buzzed on the workbench. I let it ring.
After 3 missed calls, she stepped back and looked up at the penthouse windows. She saw a shadow move. She pressed the intercom button for the penthouse.
Upstairs, Diana pressed the receiver. Yes? Can I help you?
Evelyn's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and imperious. Who is this? Why isn't my code working? Let me in immediately.
I'm sorry. Diana's voice was smooth as glass. I think you have the wrong address. This is a private residence.
I am Evelyn Thorne. My husband owns this building. Let me in before I call the police.
Mrs. Thorne, Diana replied smoothly, I am the legal tenant of this penthouse. If you have a grievance, you'll need to contact the property manager. Please step off the porch, or I will be the one contacting the authorities for trespassing.
Diana cut the intercom.
I watched on the camera as Evelyn completely lost her composure. She kicked the door, screaming my name, her manicured facade shattering in front of the pedestrians walking by. Eventually, she hailed another cab and sped off, her face red with fury.
By 6 p.m., the legal threats started.
I received an email from a high-priced divorce litigator, demanding immediate access to the marital home and threatening emergency injunctions. I forwarded it to Marcus.
Marcus called the lawyer. He explained, with brutal legal precision, that the building was a protected premarital asset held in an LLC. He explained that Evelyn had abandoned the property. He provided a copy of the legally binding ironclad lease agreement granting Diana Cross full possession of the penthouse.
He also noted that the gallery had been formally evicted for violation of its commercial lease due to irregular financial activities.
The opposing lawyer went quiet. When the facts are a brick wall, even the most expensive lawyers stop trying to punch through them.
The real storm hit on Tuesday morning.
Evelyn had checked into a luxury hotel across town, bleeding her credit cards dry, confident that Julian would bail her out once he returned from Europe.
But Julian wasn't returning.
At 8 a.m., I was drinking coffee with Diana in the penthouse kitchen, which she had completely transformed into a warm, inviting space, when my phone rang. It was Special Agent Caldwell from the FBI's art crime team.
Mr. Thorne, we executed a warrant at Julian Vance's properties in New York and Miami this morning. Interpol picked him up in Geneva last night.
And Evelyn? I asked, my voice steady.
Agents are knocking on her hotel room door right now. Evelyn had thought she was playing a sophisticated game of high society. She didn't realize she was playing a federal crime. Because her name was on the gallery's LLC, and because she was the one signing off on the structured deposits, Julian had set her up as the perfect fall guy. When the feds raided her hotel room, they found her laptop, which I had helpfully suggested they subpoena.
It contained every forged provenance document she had created for him.
At 3 p.m., I got a collect call from a federal holding facility.
I accepted the charges.
Elias, she was sobbing. It wasn't the delicate theatrical crying she used to get out of parking tickets. It was the raw, primal panic of a woman whose entire world had just evaporated. Elias, you have to help me.
They took my passport. They're talking about money laundering. Julian isn't answering his phone.
Julian is in federal custody in Switzerland, Evelyn, I said. My voice calm, the ticking of the grandfather clock in my workshop echoing through the line.
You knew, she gasped.
I know how to read a ledger, I replied. And I know how to read a reflection in an Instagram photo.
Elias, please. You have to hire Marcus for me. You have to pay my bail. I'm your wife.
You're my ex-wife, I corrected her. The judge expedited the filing due to the impending federal indictments against you, to protect the innocent assets.
You set me up, she screamed, the venom finally breaking through the tears. You locked me out and let me walk into this.
I didn't set you up, Evelyn, I said softly. I just stopped protecting you from your own choices. You wanted to breathe. Now you have all the time in the world to do it.
Just in a much smaller room.
I hung up. I didn't block the number. I simply set the phone down and walked away.
Some people think revenge is about screaming matches, broken windows, and dramatic showdowns in the rain. But true accountability isn't loud. It's the quiet, inevitable turning of a gear. It's simply letting someone experience the full, unfiltered consequences of their own actions.
A year has passed since Evelyn boarded that plane to Monaco.
She took a plea deal to avoid 20 years, testifying against Julian in exchange for a 5-year sentence in a minimum security federal facility. The gallery on the second floor is gone. In its place, Diana has opened a beautiful, quiet archival library and restoration consultancy.
We work in the same building. Sometimes we leave our doors open, so the smell of her roasting coffee drifts down to my workshop, and the rhythmic ticking of my clocks drifts up to her office.
We aren't just landlord and tenant anymore. After the dust settled, we realized that we shared the same appreciation for peace, for honesty, and for things that are built to last. We started sharing dinners. Then we started sharing weekends.
Last night, we sat on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the Boston skyline. The air was crisp and clean. Diana was reading a book, leaning comfortably against my shoulder, not needing to speak to fill the silence.
I looked at her, and then down at my hands. I've spent my entire life fixing broken things. But I finally learned that you don't have to fix people who break you. Sometimes, you just have to open the door, let them walk out, and change the locks.
And when the right person finally walks in, you realize that for the first time in your life, you aren't just keeping time.
You're finally living it.